all this time I actually believed that the Thanatos was the most popular carrier in this game, but I was very wrong. The most popular carrier in this game apparently is the Nidhoggur, which got 52% of the votes, Archon second place with 18%, then Chimera with 17%, and the Thanatos is actually on the 4th place with 13% of the votes. Well, that means it will be time to jump in the Nidhoggur, and let's see how this thing works. Now, first thing I have to say that this is one big rusty ship. Although the Minmatar carrier has a very nice design, reminds me on the Hell a lot. The Hell is the Minmatar super carrier that I believe will be released at one point. Basically, super carriers are carriers just, a little bit larger with, a little bit more firepower. But in general, they are very similar. I've been flying dreadnoughts, battleships, and now I will be flying carriers. I will have one for PvP very soon. Now, this thing is actually not that long. The carriers in length are actually very comparable to the battleships. They are just slightly longer, although some battleships are over 2 kilometers long. This thing is 2.8 kilometers long. For example, the Revelation is 3.8 kilometers, the Naglifar is 3.6 kilometers. This is 2188 meter long, so a very small capital ship, although it's still massive, still big, but for a capital ship it's actually pretty small. Roll bonus plus 400% Antosis link activation time. It has a jump drive, can fit command burst modules, plus 100% command burst effective range, which is really nice for these ships. Light fighter operation bonus will give you plus 5% light fighter damage. Carrier command bonus will give you plus 5% light fighter flight velocity, plus 1% command burst strength, and the last bonus plus 1% shield command burst activation time. So the Nidhoggur is a shield tank. Okay, that is very important to know. Overall, very nice stats. On paper, looks really good. Now onto the attributes and fitting. No high slots, 3 fighter slots, 5 medium slots, 8 low slots, 3 combat and 3 engineering rigs. This thing has a very small cargo capacity, a lot smaller than a battleship, that's for sure, and it has half of the fuel capacity as a dreadnought, 4000. Dreadnoughts have 8000. 493,000 hit points, that's actually really good, almost like a dreadnought, just a little bit lower. This thing is a shield tank, so don't attempt to armor tank a Nidhoggur, it's not going to end well. After all, it has a very nice bonus on shield command burst, and of course 8 low slots, you can make this thing very tanky. 61,000 gigajoule is the capacitor, has a very long recharge time and a decent recharge rate per second, can lock 8 targets, 7.3 km signature radius, 75 meter scan resolution, 107 meter per second is the flight velocity, 1.5 astronomical units per second is the warp speed. This thing is slow, so don't expect carriers to be very fast, although I think this is the fastest carrier, but still it's slow because it's a capital ship, so don't expect these things to be fast. Now on to the fitting, and this is where things get interesting. This is the first ship that I fly that doesn't have any high slots. 3424.32 DPS, which is really nice for the current build, and again, no high slots. Your only source of damage are fighters, so you have to keep those fighters safe. Now we have several types of fighters. The current ones that I have are light fighters. They are light recon fighters or anti-aircraft fighters that are good at dealing with interceptors, frigates, cruisers. Overall, they have lower DPS, but they're faster and they can easily deal with small ships. And then we have the light attack recon fighter, which does do a little bit more damage, and they are good against battlecruisers, battleships, and you can even use them against dreadnoughts. Overall, the current stats on these things look really good. They're basically drones, just a little bit more buffed up, and overall they have a lot more health and they do a lot more damage. Now, they have around 600 plus kilometer optimal range. That's because of the rigs. You can send fighters at 500 plus kilometers. Flight velocity 1261, orbital speed 224, drone command range 613. The same stats are on the anti-aircraft fighters. They have only lower alpha damage and of course lower DPS. But honestly, I haven't had any problems with shooting down small ships with the normal light fighters. So you can use both. Now, when I swapped to the light recon fighters, my DPS went up, and well, throughout this video I will use this combination. Of course, you can use a variety of fighters. You can mix the damage types if you like. In my case, I like to use that one damage type. As for the rigs, well, if you don't have a lot of ISK, then this is the classic rig combo that you can use. It works real well, and you can mix the DPS with range. Now, if you have a little bit more ISK, or should I say, if you have couple kidneys laying around, then you can actually go with full-on rig integration. The DPS got nicely increased with the 80% 2P combat integration modules. And of course, I focused on the fighter burst and on the fighter firepower. That's the combo that I like to use the most, and I have one normal rig for increased rate of fire. And this is of course a build that focuses on both tank and DPS. Of course, in the next part I will show you a full tank build on this ship, because I think this thing can actually be ridiculously tanky. Now, Imperial Navy Fighter Fire Control Array increases the DPS of your fighters. This is a active module. That means there is no cooldown. You activate the module and it runs until you turn it off. Let me show you how that works. So, I have undocked, and here I noticed that you cannot group the fighters. You are practically stuck with this current layout, so you will have to use both pages on the carrier. I forgot to use fuel. I'll take some fuel later on. Overall, should not be a big problem. Let's turn on the adaptive shield harness, and I think let's orbit the station. Now let's take a look at the fit. DPS 5.5 thousand, which is really nice. 1.2 million is the effective hit point. 69, 72, 79 and 83 are the resistances. A little bit less shield than a dreadnought, but still without a tank rig, pretty good default resistances. Capacity 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and per 3 km is the signature radius, which is of course to be expected. This thing is after all massive. 349.98 meter per second is the afterburner speed. You know, when I said that this is actually slow, this is actually faster than a Balagorn, so yeah. The Nidhoggur is faster than a Balagorn, which is impressive for a capital ship. Of course, comparing both ships with afterburners. Okay, let's take a look at the fighter DPS. Now it's 6.4 thousand with one fighter combat array enabled. It did increase the stats of these little things quite nicely. Let's turn on the second one. And the DPS is now 7.1 thousand, to be more accurate 7192.28 DPS, which is really nice for the current tank. very close to a full tank dreadnought. Now, as you can see, the modules don't have a cooldown, they are practically running until you turn them off, and I really like that aspect. They increase the damage by 17.92%, which is really good. Now, the network sensor mode increases your scan resolution to plus 500%, and of course you cannot warp while the sensor mode is active, but unlike the dreadnought that cannot move in siege mode, the carrier can actually remain mobile on the battlefield with this mode enabled, and well, you can practically insta-lock frigates, insta-lock any ship, and you can kill them without worrying much about any interceptor or anything small like that. Carriers eat interceptors for breakfast. You will not have any problems with a interceptor if you are flying a carrier. One of my friends did have a encounter with a Thanatos a long time ago, and well, the Thanatos practically destroyed his succubus in 1 second. So you don't have to worry about small ships if you are in a carrier. However, you have to be careful around not losing your fighters. Your fighters are the only source of DPS. And of course, you can't warp and you can't dock with the sensor mode enabled, so you practically have to wait for the sensor mode cooldown to disappear, and you have to turn it off and then you can dock. It is something that you should keep in mind. Now, we have one more new module, Imperial Federation Navy Fighter Micro-Updrive Guide. Now this is practically a micro-updrive for your fighters. It increases the flight velocity for 542%, which lasts 20 seconds. Now this module has a cooldown, so it's not going to be running at all time. Let me show you how that works. Which is good, because it is ridiculous that you will see how fast the fighters are actually going once I turn that off. The DPS is 6,455, which is really nice. The default speed of the fighters 1,261 meter per second, orbital speed is 224 meter per second, which is still nice. Now, let's take a look at how fast are they going to go once I turn that on. 8,097 meter per second is the flight velocity. The orbital speed remains the same, but these things are fast and they're going to be fast for 20 seconds. You have practically enough DPS to destroy any fast ship within seconds, so 20 seconds is more than enough to catch anything, which is good. These things need some form of protection against smaller targets. And this is kind of the goal and the overall idea for the carriers. The dreadnought works against the big ship, while the carrier works against the small ones. And if you're wondering how the fighters look, well, this is one fighter squad. Honestly, I find these little things adorable. They look really good, and they look really cute actually. Or it might be just me, but that's a small beehive right here. These things sting, and I like that. There you could see the mothership. There's the carrier floating down there, and the fighters seem to be moving around. Or I think my camera is just swapping through the fighter squads, which is really interesting. Okay, now let me quickly demonstrate how fast the fighters actually go, because it's one thing to just talk about their speed, it's another thing to actually experience how quick they are. So I'm just quickly warping towards this small anomaly. Afterwards I will run some encounters, but first let me show you how the fighters move and how they behave in combat. Because this is actually my first encounter with fighters. I haven't been using fighters in this game, and practically first time that I will launch them to shoot something. Okay, let's lock on the targets. Now, without sensor mode, it takes 16-17 seconds to lock onto a destroyer and a frigate. With sensor mode, well, let me take a look how quick it will lock on. It should be almost a insta-lock. Well, through 2.5 seconds. That's actually really good. Okay, well, let's wait for this brick to align towards the station. Fighters have been launched. Let's take a look at the fighter squad, and well, there they go. They are ridiculously fast, and they are already within optimal range. Now, these are the normal light fighters. But so far they don't seem to have any problems with hitting a frigate. They're actually going down ridiculously fast. Now, carriers as dreadnoughts, they're both capital ships and they cannot enter high sec, which is a good thing. Imagine what these things could do if you could launch them in high sec. They would definitely replace the Apocalypse Striker, because let me tell you, these things are kind of insane. So far I can tell you, I really enjoy the carriers in this game. I enjoy them more than I expected. So I did decide, because of that, I did decide to actually skill for one, and very soon I'll definitely fly a carrier into PvP. And of course, you can use the micro updrive mod to make your fighters return to your carrier, and then you can easily warp away, or dock in my case. Alright, well, let's dock. I have a couple more builds that I would like to show you. Thankfully, I was aligned. These things warp really slow. That's basically what did remind me that they are capital ships after all. Now, just for fun, let's see how much DPS I can get out of this ship. I expect around 8000 DPS. I have 5 of these damage mods for fighters. Of course, this is a build that I would not personally use because I have no tank. And a PvP carrier needs to have tank, so when I start to fly this into PvP, I'll definitely go for a more tanky build, but eventually I'll see what I'll do with this ship. Alright, well, let's take a look at the DPS. I also have some fuel now, and the stats on the shield command burst look very nice. You get extra resistance, you get extra shield and extra shield boost, less capacitor use and things like that. Overall, very helpful, and definitely something that will be very important for a capital ship, especially in a fleet. You can definitely notice the increase in shield. So I can definitely make a very tanky carrier with that command burst module. Alright, let's take a look at the DPS. 6.4 thousand, okay. With the second mod enabled, 7.1 thousand, okay. With the third mod, it's 7.6 thousand, okay. With the fourth mod, 7.9 thousand, okay. And with the fifth one, I know 5 is overkill, but just for fun, 7.9, almost 8,000, 3 DPS short of 8,000 DPS. Well, I guess I was wrong, not 8,000 DPS, but 7,997.09, which is ridiculously high, almost matches my Revelation DPS. And honestly, I'm really happy with the current DPS output. Should be more than enough for the fighters to go through any sub-capital ship that there is in the game. Now, the command burst will give you weapon timer. and for a second I got a little bit scared because I thought that I got criminal timer. So for a moment I thought that this was about to be a very dead carrier, but thankfully it's only the weapon timer, and that doesn't get your ship destroyed on station or a gate. So I am safe, and well, let's just wait that out, then I can dock. Unpleasant surprise, but wasn't. I actually forgot that the command burst does give you weapon timer.
Docking request accepted.
Alright, now this is a more balanced build that I personally like, and also if you dock with the fighter control arrays still running, then they will still run even after you dock, so that's why the DPS is still ridiculously high. Now, 3 adaptives, 2 fighter damage arrays, full DPS rigs, 1 capacitor battery, 1 shield booster and 1 afterburner. A very nice balanced build so far. You can swap one adaptive into the fighter micro drive mod, which is still really nice. You will have a pretty good tank and your fighters will be very speedy. You can swap that one fighter drone mod into a capital capacitor battery, which can be important in some situations. You can swap one capacitor battery into dual shield boosters, which also works, although carriers are not as tanky as dreadnoughts. Or you can do a build like this with dual capacitor batteries and dual capital shield boosters. Or you can swap that micro objective mod into a fighter control array while keeping the capacitor batteries and shield boosters. Alright, well, I think it's time to have some more fun with this rusty carrier. This is one of the rustiest ships that I've ever seen. And I mean, like, the hull is literal rust. The Naglfar is also pretty rusty, although this appears to be a little bit more rusty. And this thing is actually very thin as well. It has a very, very nice ship design. Okay, everything enabled. The carrier will slowly turn around. Apologies for the 30 FPS frame rate here. Phone decided to throttle for some reason, but that will be changed as the video goes on. So I will go send my fighters at that one frigate first. Let's actually experience the fighter action from third person. You know, these things are actually it's very fun to watch fighters floating around. They're very quick with the micro overdrive mod, and looks like they use cannons, although the stats say that they have explosion velocity and explosion radius. That's what's very unique to the fighters. They behave like missiles, they behave practically like those weapon systems, and they cannot miss, I think. So far I haven't experienced a fighter miss. The lowest damage that they would do is 1 DPS, 1 damage. I had experience with fighting with a carrier. We killed that one carrier. They couldn't break the Balgorn tank, although I'm pretty sure that this carrier would be able to go through my Balgorn, although I'm not entirely sure. That thing can tank a lot of damage. You know, the effects are actually really good. And as you can see, they are going through ships like a hot knife through butter. Now, I'm just going to pull the fighters back because I need to go and cool down the phone, because it's overheating a little bit. I'm trying out something a little bit different. And sorry for the weird cut, but now I am back, and now the frame rate should be above 60 FPS, and it looks pretty smooth now. Okay, everything is now under control. Well, let's go back to the fighter squad and let's see how they tear those ships apart. No issue with that destroyer. Okay, let's go after the frigate. Well, they seem to be doing hits on the frigate, although that frigate is a little bit far away. Now, while we wait for the fighters to go reach the target, 74, 77, 83, 86, 1.4 million effective hit point. This is with the shield command burst module running. So I expect this thing to have around 92-95% resistance when I go do a full-on brick tank that I like to do. So yeah, this carrier has the potential to be extremely tanky. Now, the dreadnoughts have a very good bonus and a very good boost in repair in the siege mode. Carriers, on the other hand, don't have that. So you will definitely notice a massive difference in the shield boosted performance on the Minmatar carrier. If we compare the shield boosted performance to the Naglfar, that thing has ridiculous tank and it can recover the whole shield in like 6 seconds, while you are not going to be able to do the same thing on a carrier because it just lacks the bonus and of course lacks the siege mode. But they have very good resistances and overall they can be quite tanky. Like I said before, carriers keep the dreadnoughts safe from the sub-capitals, while the dreadnoughts keep the carriers safe from the big ships. And a dreadnought fleet is not completed without a carrier fleet that can support them. So both of these ships kind of work really well in a fleet. And well, I'm here looking at the fighters tearing everything apart. Honestly, this is really satisfying to just look at these things wreak havoc on everything. Let me just quickly adjust some things. Okay. You can use the micro drive mod to quickly engage targets. It can be really helpful if you have a interceptor around you. No interceptor is going to be able to safely tackle a carrier that easily. Now when I think about it, I think a carrier might be a very good ship to run tutorial missions with, and that this actually comes from... I actually haven't really thought that I would change my opinion on that. I thought that carriers in low sec would be a bad idea, and I think that they are still a bad idea, but you have very good defenses against those tackle ships. You really don't have to worry about 1 or 2 interceptors tackling you. You can just kill them. You can literally just kill them. If they decide to tackle you at close range, just send your fighters towards the interceptor and the interceptor will be very dead. Same can be said about any ship, a Ortus, Bellicose, Cortops, Phantasm, Cinnabal. A carrier kills that very quickly. You can always carry some anti-aircraft fighters with you in case the normal fighters for some reason cannot kill the tackling ship. But they should be more than capable to deal with those small tackle ships. Now I know a lot of you probably already fly carriers in nullsec, and I think the right place for capital ships is nullsec. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you fly these things into ratting fleets. Basically you have a couple carriers with a Nightmare Guardian and you practically run through dead space encounters and other nullsec encounters, maybe even inside of the Nihilus dead space. Not quite sure if you can enter one of these with a capital ship, And of course, I almost forgot, we have the capital ship sites that are also quite profitable, and these things with a guardian can do a lot of damage. Of course, they can be flown with other dreadnoughts following them, which is a very nice thing. And I just realized that
warp drive active.
My microphone, well, not my microphone, but one of the buttons attached to the headset is for some reason moving around. So if you hear any scratching noises, or if you hear something clacking or, you know, crackling, that's just this button that's just floating around for some reason. So my apologies if you hear some weird noises coming from the microphone. I'm practically standing still, but this thing moves for some reason. Not quite sure what's going on. Maybe it's time for a new headset. Who knows? Alright, next encounter. Honestly, you know how quick I clear these? It's ridiculous, actually. I'm so glad that carriers cannot enter high sec. They would definitely outperform anything. And I can only imagine the chaos that they would be causing if they would be able to enter high sec. Now, I don't have the best skills for this thing, probably. So, I'm pretty sure that you will have carriers with over 10,000 DPS. I'm pretty sure that you have carriers with 11,000, 12,000 DPS, which does actually match the DPS of a dreadnought. One of my corp mates actually used to fly one of these ships. Well, you probably know where the ship went, right? So they did have 10,000 DPS on their carrier, and I think we will definitely assemble a carrier fleet, because we already have like 30 dreadnoughts, 50 dreadnoughts. I have no idea actually. Some of us have like 2, so I think we have assembled a good dreadnought fleet. Now we have to assemble a good support fleet, and that means it's time for carriers. So you know me, I like to fly a lot of ships in this game, and honestly I have a big interest in carriers now, and I'm pretty sure once I learn how to fly this thing that I'll actually have a lot of fun flying one of these monsters. Now I have a tradition. Before I actually start flying something in PvP, I first learn to fly it, because I don't want to lose the ship by a dumb mistake, which did happen in the past, but of course I did learn from my mistakes, and let's not kill my own fighters. These things cost a couple kidneys. Literally, these are some of the most expensive things in the game. Not quite sure if we have faction fighters. I do not even want to imagine how much that costs. Probably costs a couple of kidneys as well. I like to joke around a lot lately, because sometimes I just undock, I go to our gate, and there's just like 5 or 6 dreadnoughts looking at me, and yeah, that's around 500 billion, maybe a trillion of ISK right at the gate. So yeah, really ridiculous. But so far, I think we've been doing great with our fleet. We had a couple mistakes. We had some oopsies, if I can call them like that, but already recovered. We recovered that fast, and everything is under control. So I think most of my skills are now going to be redirected towards the carriers. I know that they are very skill intensive, but I'll eventually have the optimal skills for these things. Now, you might be wondering which one I will fly. Well, there is this one. I already like the Nidhoggur a lot. Although, maybe the Thanatos, not quite sure. But I think I really like this one. For some reason, I really enjoy flying it. I think the most attractive thing about this carrier is its appearance. It looks really majestic for some reason. I know it's very rusty. That's something that just comes along with Minmatar ships, but it's rusty, but looks very good. Thanatos looks also very nice, but I'm just not that much attracted towards that galactic carrier. So if I were to pick one carrier for PvP, then it's going to be this one, absolutely. And of course, in the future, when we get faction dreadnoughts, then I'll definitely get a Chemosh. I already talked about that a couple times. Once we get super carriers, not quite sure if I will fly a super capital, not really interested in the way that I would not fly it, but I don't have where to park it, because these things are definitely going to require a different type of outpost, because I know that in EVE Online you cannot dock these things into normal stations. So that is basically the long-term plan for the future capital ships that I will fly. Who knows, maybe I eventually do fly a Titan, we will see. Would be hilarious if I eventually start flying Titans, although highly unlikely because I'm not really interested in those things. A dreadnought or carrier is more than enough. Well then, let's pull back the beehive, or should I say let's pull back the hornets, because if the drones are bees, then these things are hornets. Let's go pick them up. My co-op mod is going to be up and running. The hornets are now returning to the nest. It's actually hilarious because this is actually a beehive, because you send couple fighter squadrons at your targets. Well, and nice and docked inside of the carrier. Well, that was a nice little run and nice little introduction for me for the carriers. This is the first time that I actually flew one of these things, and honestly, a very positive experience. Cannot wait to have the optimal skills for this, and really cannot wait to actually start using it in PvP. So with that being said, hope that you enjoyed, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.